Hello, 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 Detroit and the world. And we want to be the first to welcome you to Authentically Detroit. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens.
And Authentically Detroit is powered by the Eastside Community Network. More about that later. We just want to introduce ourselves to you guys. Donna Givens. Nice to see you.
Good seeing you, Orlando.
So I'm excited because we're brand new and we have a tremendous opportunity and platform to introduce ourselves to our listeners. And I want to know about you. You've been around these parts for a long time. Tell us how you got here.
Well, where should I begin?
Born and raised in Detroit?
Born and raised, born in Ann Arbor, raised in Detroit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been here since I was 2.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up on the northwest side of Detroit.
The northwest side?
Yep.
Yeah. What neighborhood?
Well, started off in on Ohio Street, in what's now called the Fitzgerald neighborhood. And then we moved in with my grandmother on Chicago Boulevard. So I was 4 houses and 4 blocks from the epicenter of the rebellion in 1967. I was 4 years old.
What do you remember about that time?
It's my first memory. It's my first memory, crawling on the floor underneath the windows. I remember being afraid of being shot. I remember driving down the street and tanks rolling down the street, and it kind of looked like what I saw on TV because the Vietnam War was just beginning.
Yeah, and that was televised.
Yeah. And so, the wars when I was a child were highly televised and really pretty traumatic. So to see a tank in the street and see people in officers' gears all during my childhood, teenage years, I had nightmares about that. But I grew up in Detroit and I loved the city. We left there. We moved to the Bagley neighborhood. And then,
shout out to Bagley.
Okay, shout out to Bagley and then to Palmer Woods.
Hey. So can you talk a little bit about how that experience shaped you and your perspective to, do the city building and community development work that you're doing now? First of all, you've been doing this kind of work a long time. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A long time. Since the 1980s, the mid-1980s, during the height of the AIDS crisis, I was out there on the front lines working with an organization called Community Health Awareness Group. And this was working in the area of HIV/AIDS when it was perceived of as a white gay male disease, but it was greatly impacting the Black community, kind of the silent number of people who were being impacted by it. There were very few resources dedicated to the Black community, but we had a really cool project in Detroit where we were working with people who were at risk and educating people to go out and serve as community outreach workers. And then we got a little training and they started calling them ethnographers, and that was real cool.
We love our words and our jargon in this industry. Oh, gosh.
Well, as a people, we love our words, right? So, we were working with, returning citizens and a lot of them would leave prison and come to work for us, and we would provide them with training, and they go back out in the community and educate their peers. And the amazing thing about it is that the HIV/AIDS, a single person who dies from it is tragic, but when you look at the scope and the scale of the epidemic in the blackest city in America, it never reached what it did in many other cities. And I'd like to believe it's because we got in there early and we educated people and equipped them with what they needed to know to help prevent further transmission.
So that was your introduction into this work.
It was my introduction.
That's quite an introduction.
Trial by fire. It was a wonderful job. I'd say it was the best job I ever had, but I love my job now.
Really?
But it was, as tragic as it was great work because it exposed me to so many wonderful people from every single walk of life possible. And what we had in common was our humanity. What we had in common was our intelligence, and what they were able to share with me was the rich history of every person from every different background. So the most humorous person I've ever met, one of the smartest people I've ever met, was a prostitute who, was on the streets. It didn't have any teeth, and to a person who you ordinarily would just walk right by. And she had more power and more humanity and more humor than so many other people. at the time, Black women with AIDS would die within 6 months, and she
It was
lived,
a death sentence.
It
yeah.
was, but she lived for another 12 years
Wow.
after diagnosis. So she had some kind of power inside of her. She got clean. She became a outreach worker herself and became a minister, and really went on to live a very meaningful and impactful life on other people. So the work inspired me, because so many of the people who we worked with, I used to run the support group, and people would say, this is the best I've ever lived my life.
Wow.
People with AIDS diagnosis who were at the brink of death found joy in life and peace in life at the end of their lives. And I started to wonder then what we could do if we were able to go back to the very beginning and help equip people with the things they needed to avoid falling into the traps they fell into that led them to the path many of them followed to become HIV/AIDS infected. Because in a lot of instances, it was impacting people who were poor, impacting people who were IV drug users, and impacting women who were, living on the streets in various ways. And you still see that kind of playing itself out. So I loved the work.
It's
hated
very
the disease.
sobering work and heavy work. How did you maintain this light spirit that you have and this sense of humor that you have?
The funniest people ever. When you are dealing with life and death issues and disease, it was a very loving, spirited, humorous workplace. So we laughed all day long. We used to say there needed to be a sitcom about our workplace.
Nice.
There were just so many different people, and we learned to laugh at ourselves and to laugh at the foibles of other people as a means of maintaining some level of balance. So working in the community, working and addressing problems and challenges in life is something that I got invested in very early in my career. But you asked a question about how my background led me to that, and I can say that it didn't. It didn't really prepare me for that. But when I think of how I was raised and the opportunities I was raised in, Zora Neale Hurston talks about Eatonville.
Yeah.
And how she was raised in a place where she did not understand. Right. She did not understand that she was oppressed. And she did not understand feelings of inferiority. I was raised in a world where we were not inferior. I was called the N-word on a regular basis by some of the white people I was around, but it didn't hurt me because there was no sense of being less than anybody.
You can do whatever you wanted to do.
I was raised among people who did, who accomplished much, who rose above every single expectation and lived together. And, that comes with its own brand of elitism and oppression of other people. And so there's the dark side of anybody feeling as though they can be transcendent and feeling like they're self-made, and sometimes feeling as though they're better than other people. But on the bright side, I was raised to feel as though nobody was any better than me. And that has been a, significant feeling all throughout my life, which has, I think, served as a protection against racism. Because if you don't have an internal belief of your own inferiority, there's nothing anybody can say or do that will make you believe that. And I'd be remiss if I did not state that I had a grandmother who was an activist, who was out there in the front lines of so many movements in the city of Detroit. And so I was raised in a neighborhood with a lot of privilege. And my grandmother, who inspired me, was a person who fought very hard all of her life for people who did not have much privilege.
Nice.
And so when I was a young person, I wanted to be like her, not like many of the people I grew up with who looked down on people like my grandmother, but like my grandmother, who fought for everybody in our family and people in the community and people she didn't even know.
So are you like Granny? Are you still striving?
So the greatest compliment is when people in my family say that I am the granddaughter who is most like her. So I am sorry
great.
for any of my cousins who might want to listen, but people, if I am like her in the ways that I'm like her, I'm proud.
So you also have an interesting story. This is your second go around at Eastside Community Network, formerly known as Warren Connor. Us Warren Connor employees have a running joke that we call it Warren Connor University. Some of everybody who leads any kind of initiative or community development company in Detroit cut their teeth at Warren Connor now Eastside Community Network. So this is your second go around at ECN.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And, second time around is even sweeter, right? But yeah, I mean, I loved working at Warren Conner. When I first started working at Warren Conner in 1993, it was, rooted in the very
I was
same.
4.
Well, just imagine, you had no idea. But it was Warren Conner's work is rooted in this whole same concept of helping individuals actualize their potential, believing in people,
Yes.
investing in people, and
Yes.
coming up with a shared vision for change. And here's an opportunity at Warren Conner to work with parents of small children and to work with youth inside of our community to help intervene in ways that might make a difference so that they didn't end up in the same places that so many of the people who I had worked with before found themselves in. I learned a lot from the people at Warren Conner and hopefully shared a lot. And it was never about me being the person in charge and being the leader. I always felt more like a facilitator or a coach, where with the staff and with the people that we served, really trying to help facilitate the development of knowledge, resources, social bonds between people that would strengthen all of us so that we could work collaboratively to make a difference in our homes and in the community.
Yeah. And so you had a lot of stops in between Warren Conner the first time and now ECN this time.
Well,
but we're happy to have
the
you.
University of Life has been great. But you know
Life
what?
University.
Your autobiography, now you grew up not too far from here.
Listen, right down the street from where we're recording right now was where my grandmother's home was, where our home was, Manistique Street. The home is no longer there. My grandmother sold the house to a developer looking to develop what is now known as the MacArthur Square. And so the living room of this community now was my living room first. And it's just crazy every time I look at the shopping center and think,
What was it like growing up here?
It was full of love. I was raised by strong Black women who took time to really rear us, instill Christian values in us, make sure that we were grounded morally, and that we loved each other and we looked out for each other. So Manistique Street was a block of family. We had so many family members that lived on one block. So can you imagine coming outside and your cousins are coming outside from down the street and your auntie and your grandparents, and then my mom's godparents also lived on the street, and then they had their children who were my age. And so every day was a party. Every day was a party. My grandmother owned lots that she fenced in and took care of and essentially programmed on a regular basis in spring, summer, and fall. There were definitely more houses on Manistique Street than there are now, but there was still a nice amount of vacancy. But we didn't know what blight was because we didn't see it. The neighbors really pitched in and made sure lots were cut. My grandmother took excellent care of her lots. I always say this, before placemaking became a fundable thing, my grandmother was doing it herself, just parties and picnics and, just a ton of fun. So I grew up around a lot of kids, a lot of love, valued education, and extracurricular activities that helped me actualize my potential and the goals that I had set at a very young age. And so I enrolled in the Youth on the Edge of Greatness program when I was 11 years old at Remus Robinson Middle School. Born and raised here on the East Side, went to Remus Robinson and Jefferson Chalmers. And that is when I first met Warren Conner Development Coalition, now ECN. That's well over 20 years ago now. And fell in love with the program, fell in love with the staff, and they couldn't get rid of me after that.
No, it's interesting because a lot of times, even today, when people drive through neighborhoods where you do have vacancy, they see, even if the homes are well taken care of and the lots are well tended, they see a loss and they see blight. But you grew up seeing abundance in that vacancy, abundant spaces for you to play and for your family to get together. How did we change the narrative? Because I think that people look at vacancy in the community in one way, and yet it was a beautiful thing to you. Do you communicate that to people and let them know?
I do. I try to tell that story as often as I can because I think it's important. I think it's important. My grandmother was proud of where she purchased her home. She was proud of where she lived, and she wanted to make sure that we had space to play and to stretch out, and she wanted to make sure that we were safe. And so the grass was always cut because she needed to see us. You know what I mean? I think that when we look at what we have and try to realize the asset in what we have. She took so much pride in being able to own land, right? She migrated here from Comida, Mississippi with her parents in the 1940s, right? Family came from a family of sharecroppers. They didn't know what, and so she had so much pride. And it never occurred to me that it was anything else but our land that we own and that we played on and that we had parties on. And so I try to tell that story often to get people to realize and to actually begin to visualize and imagine what these lots can be, especially if you've been tending to one for a long time in the city of Detroit. It can be a family gathering space. It's a community gathering space. My grandmother was the community's grandma.
When I was at I was down the street on Cadillac from Pewabic leaving an event the other day.
Yeah.
And walking to the car, and I saw these kids playing on these lots that had been assembled next to their home, and it looked like a park next to their home. And it was just beautiful. They were playing football, and it looked like they had a bar outside. But your eye has to be trained to that. It's interesting to me that coal miners get to, have nostalgia about their way of life. And people say, oh, look, let's try to figure out how to start using coal, even if it's bad for the environment, because these people have a way of life worth preserving.
Yeah.
People tell Detroiters to move on, get over the past. And there's this mindset that there's really nothing lost.
Yeah. And sometimes it's tremendous loss. I can say that I am definitely attached to the humans in this city. We are a very familial people. We treat each other like family, but I am also committed and attracted to and dedicated to physical space in this community. And so while it is amazing to see the shopping center that has become the living room of Grosse Pointe Park and the city of Detroit, there's still some trauma there. The house that was my home, the land that was ours, is no longer there. And so it's negotiating this and balancing this feeling of, I'm so happy that we did this for the community, but I literally have no physical space to return to that. So it's
erasure. So you had another experience today on Mac.
Yeah, so spent a lot of time at East Ingles Village. Family owns a home there. And growing up, we used to go to Top Video Store. Top Video Store is a store on Mack Avenue, was a store on Mack Avenue. And we used to get our video games and our VHS tapes on a Friday. There was nothing like a trip to the video store on a Friday night and get a pizza and go home and have fun with the family. And today, coming from a meeting headed westward on Mack Avenue, the building was literally being demolished. And from the outside, the structure seemed completely solid. It was a beautiful looking structure on the outside. And when it was open, it was beautiful on the inside. And I sat there for about 5 minutes just in awe of another physical space that I am attached to, that I have memories in, being demolished, being gone. I know that some folks in Gen X and the baby boomer generation talk about once having things and watching things go away. And the older that I get, I'm beginning to understand that, because some of the things that even I had in my short 29 years of life, some things I've watched physically go away, and that's hard.
It is.
Yeah.
There's no preservation plan
in
neighborhoods that aren't wealthy. And even when things are preserved, a lot of times it's not really preservation, it's conversion into something else.
Yeah.
And so it is difficult in a city where the past, our history, is not honored.
Yes.
And I feel as though the history of Detroit between 1967 and Mike Duggan becoming mayor is not an honored time in our history. And I wonder why that is, but I think I know why it is. I think that the time when Fidel Castro took over Cuba until now, Cuba is not an honored nation for the same reason that the leadership of the nation has somehow been deemed illegitimate. And therefore, we will delegitimize everything that happens. So I've heard that there might be cures for cancer and other types of diseases that are coming out of Cuba, and yet we are not learning from that and growing from that because we've decided that nothing that happened there matters anymore. And until you get a completely different leadership, it's not going to matter. Now, when you do, chances are people are going to go in and change old spaces, and all of a sudden Cuba will be back, and you'll be reading about it in news magazines all over the nation. What will it take to bring Cuba back to the days when racial discrimination was a thing, but also capitalism? We capitalized off of this. And it's so interesting to me that in pre-1967 Detroit, a city that was so balkanized and so segregated, we still honor that history as the real Detroit that some people are trying to get back to. Someone said the other day, when we talk about making America great again, at what epoch was America ever great? And
especially for Black folks.
For Black folks.
Yes.
And Black folks and Hispanic folks
Brown
and
folks, yes.
Native American folks and Japanese folks, and I could keep on going.
Yes.
And, you know, to a certain extent, women and poor people and industrial people. I think that there's this mythology of the past. And so when we look at the past in Detroit, I think it's important that we somehow come together and lift up our past as something for us to celebrate. Great things happened in your childhood.
Yes.
And you know what? Great things happened in mine after 1967, which is when all of my memories began.
Yeah.
I loved growing up in the city. I loved working in the city as a young woman. I've loved working inside of neighborhoods. And I think that's the genesis for this show.
Yeah.
Is this whole concept that there is a Detroit, an authentic Detroit, that needs to be lifted up and celebrated, even as all these other people are talking about New Detroit. That's who we are. So maybe you can take a minute to share what Authentically Detroit is.
Yes. So Authentically Detroit is powered by Eastside Community Network, a 35-year-old not-for-profit community development organization that serves the Lower East Side of the city. As Donna and I are staff of ECN and your hosts, we are hoping to invite you into our space of constant intergenerational discussion, male and female perspective, and a critical take on the happenings in the city of Detroit. Moving forward, our shows will be thematic in that each show will take a comprehensive look at things like housing in Detroit, spatial racism, economic development, neighborhood planning, self-care, community trauma, and more. Not only will we tackle these topics head on, we'll also bring in expert guests to help us out. We don't want to have these conversations in a vacuum either, so we are encouraging you to participate. Find us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at Authentically Detroit Podcast and become a part of the conversation. We want to hear from you. We really want you all to be active participants in the conversations that we're having. And if there is a theme or a topic that you want us to cover and unpack on this show, we are asking that you hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Authentically Detroit Podcast. We so look forward to chatting with you guys online.
Yeah, and if you have something you really want to say, join us in the studio and let's talk.
Listen, we are ready. We are ready. So, if you want to be a guest, if you have something that you really want to break down, email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Our email address is authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. You just might make it in. But I don't know. You got to be ready for it because we go. We go. So it's really fun. What we essentially want to amplify and give platform to is the conversations that Donna and I have every single day with our varying perspectives. We believe that this will become a sacred and safe place for intergenerational conversation, which is so important because I don't believe we are taking time out to create intentional spaces like this one at a broader level here in the city. I honor the Detroit that you grew up knowing and loving, and I add legitimacy to that. And I love that you honor the Detroit that I grew up knowing and loving. And in some instances, it's vastly different. But you honor the experience, and I appreciate that.
Well, appreciate your Detroit too, and the fact that you you have, and you can tell your grandmother's touch because you have a way of honoring those who came before you.
Yeah,
and those who came before you have a responsibility. Those that we raised and those that came after us, and that means sometimes we won't see eye to eye, but we really do have a shared vision, a shared interest in preserving our community, and the stakes get higher every day. So with that, let's talk about the news. You have some announcements you want to make.
Okay, so this segment, we're going to be introducing our segments to you guys. This segment is called Fresh Off the Press, news that we are thinking about. So what's on my mind? What's in the press that's on my mind? Well, the Kresge Foundation recently announced its Kresge Innovative Project Detroit winners. These are grants, hundreds of thousands of dollars that Kresge is putting into neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. And it's not just going to community development organizations or organizations like ours, but neighbors and residents who are on the ground actually doing the work, who live the work every single day. So with that, I want to send a huge congratulations to Tammy Black and the Manistee Street Block Club on their implementation grant. I think they got over $100,000 for an implementation grant. You know, I recently visited Tammy, Donna, to get an update on how the Manistee Treehouse project was going. And you know what she reminded me of? She said that ECN was the first entity to take a risk in granting her money to actually do something. We were the first to give her money toward her vision and her Block Club's vision on Manistee.
Well, Tammy Black inspires me every time I see her. We took a bus tour to her stop, and nothing but a standing ovation. You almost want to make her last because when she gets done inspiring you with her work, it's hard to follow her act.
Yeah,
I'm serious. You know that she's wonderful.
Yeah, she's wonderful. I got to sit on the porch with her and just visit and walk through some of the projects that she has going on. So congratulations to Tammy Black. Also, our partners in the McDougal Hunt neighborhood received a KIPD grant, the Bailey Park Project.
And Katrina Watkins, wow, what a leader. This is a woman who assembled 22 lots, almost a city block, and is building a park inspired after George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life. It's going to be a central park in the neighborhood, and this is a grant that gives her resources to do master planning in the neighborhood.
Nice.
And to come up with a vision for everything from play space to recreational space, to walking space, making it handicap accessible, and also green infrastructure and solar installations inside of there so that it's a sustainable space.
These are residents doing the work, guys. We also want to give a mad shout out. Chandler Park Conservancy was also in the news. They received a KIPD grant. We're super proud of the Conservancy as they are an organization that grew out of our organization, right?
Yeah, outgrowth of our organization, and we still are their landlord and fiduciary, so we're close to them. It's one of ours.
Yeah.
So to have three organizations that we support get this grant is really a day of celebration for us.
Yeah, and shout out to the Kresge Foundation for listening and for responding in such a way where they are putting resources directly in the hands of the residents who are doing the work.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Brian Hogle and Wendy Jackson, Lewis Jackson and their whole team. All right, Donna, fresh off the press, what's on your mind?
Well, a serial killer. Serial killer. When I read Facebook, I read the Detroit Free Press and the news, and I read Facebook so I can know what's happening in Detroit. You know,
Facebook
is a news source. So weeks ago, I started hearing rumblings about a serial killer, And at first the city said there was no serial killer. And then the city said there was. And the serial killer was killing sex workers, they said, who were in their 50s in vacant homes. And so there's a big push to board up vacant homes and to warn sex workers not to go into vacant homes. And I won't even get into telling people who are surviving off of sex work to be safe, because I'm not quite sure what that looks like, But in talking about this, we're having our SAG meeting, Stakeholder Advisory Group meeting for LEAP tomorrow, and in sharing this concern with staff. Tuesday, June 11th. Thank you for reminding me that everybody doesn't know what tomorrow is. It's the 10th. Happy birthday to my sister Linda.
Happy birthday.
But we're having this meeting, and so in talking about that with the staff, they told me that one of the members of our program reached out to her and said that she is squatting in a vacant home. Mm-hmm. She's squatting in the vacant home because she is homeless. And in squatting in the vacant home, one day she came home and there was a man inside who demanded sex from her. She fought him off and got away. Mm-hmm. She's in her 50s. If she had sex with him, or if he had raped her successfully and then killed her in that house, would she be a sex worker in a vacant home? Or would she be a poor woman in a home in which she was squatting and was also raped and killed? Because the reality is we have too many women in our community living on the streets because they are homeless. It's a question of poverty, and boarding up homes does not provide shelter to women who don't have spaces, safe spaces to live.
Yeah.
Where is the urgency around housing homeless people in our community?
Yeah.
There is an urgency of boarding up these homes because the homes themselves are seen as a hazard to self and safety and health, safety, and well-being. We have a homeless problem in our nation, and it's an affordability problem that has been documented in our city. And so right now there's this $200 million bond that the mayor wants to get voters to approve next March, where we'll have money to demolish and to fix up some homes. And I'm imagining the homes that are being fixed up will not be fixed up at a price affordable to the woman who we work with who's living in a squatted home right now. So where will she live? Imagine if we had a $200 million bond taken out to house homeless people in our community. Imagine if we had a plan to address affordability issues as a preventive measure towards homelessness, because crime is sometimes a matter of opportunity, and people without safe shelter are at risk of being women and children, of being raped and killed, even young men of being raped and killed. So I think that if you had a more holistic look at the problem, you'd also have to ask yourselves, when will we stop foreclosing on properties due to tax debt?
And it's a crisis.
Can we abate the tax debt of poor people, or is that a tool that is only available to corporations that are seen as having value?
It's a matter of priority and who has value.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. We're trying to fix it one knock on a door at a time. We're all going there, knocking on doors, telling people about these programs and what have you. But a blanket tax abatement, we are not going to collect taxes from you. Property taxes comprise a small portion of the city budget, small enough that we can afford to not collect them from LCA, FCA, anybody with a CA next to their name. But we are collecting them from poor people.
Okay. Fresh off the press. Well, I guess to your point, I would just say one last thing about the tendency to demolish everything. I think demolition is the final result of something else that has already taken place. And if we can prioritize preventing the something else.
That's right. That's right. Because as you pointed out, every demolition feels like a death. It's a loss.
It does. It's not
And
always the answer.
it is not. And if the only time you fix up vacant properties is to convert them for use by people who have more means, more economic means, then it's still a loss. It's a loss of access. And so is there really a desire on part of our public officials to say that every single person in this community matters? All lives matter. All Black lives matter. All Detroiters matter. And therefore, we are going to invest the resources to make sure that we take care of the least of these. You went back, and I want to go back to something 1980s. I was working in the HIV/AIDS field, and it was really, really tragic. But you know what wasn't tragic?
What?
Homelessness. At that time, if you had a person who had been diagnosed with AIDS, who was living on the streets, we could get them a home, we could get them a television, we could get them furniture in their home, we could get them food stamps, and they could live well. Why do you think they were saying they never lived so well? Because when they connected with us, there were systems of support. There was something called
That's great.
general
I wish
assistance.
my career consisted of that kind of support.
Well,
Right.
So
that is great.
I'm going to throw a data point at you.
Yeah, we love data.
In 1994, before we changed welfare in Michigan, 87% of families that were poor, received cash assistance from the state of Michigan. 87%.
This is before it changed. This is under John Engler who made the change.
Well, John Engler and Bill Clinton made a change to change welfare as we know it.
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations, because they did. Because in the year 2016, 12% of poor families and children received cash assistance from the state. There 12%. Was a time, 12%. If you aren't getting cash assistance from the state, and you don't have a housing voucher, and you don't have access to low-end jobs, and the jobs that you have don't really pay all of the bills, what exactly do we think is going to happen to people? They will find a way to survive, and then sometimes the way they survive is living in an underground economy that exposes children and families to risk, and sometimes exposes them to the, dangers of mass incarceration.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
But this is it's the economic choice that many people have. And then we judge them for making the economic choice that they have. And we feel very, reaffirmed in our own right to a certain lifestyle that is denied other people. So I think we really need to think about that in light of these demolitions, in light of the fact that these murders are taking place. But in fact, way too many people are being murdered for way too many reasons in the city of Detroit, and way too many lives have been lost.
And the other thing that I just want to reinforce, especially in areas of the city of Detroit where you feel or where we feel that there is an abundance of vacancy and things of that sort, these neighborhoods are not empty. I hear sentiment that in some neighborhoods there's nobody there, and that's not true. That's not true. Somebody could have said the same thing about my grandmother's block growing up, that there's nobody here. It's just, it's a bunch of land, but we were there. Those people matter, right? The people who live there, the people who occupy the physical spaces in these neighborhoods, vacant, open space or not, still matter.
Absolutely.
I just want to reinforce that.
Just like the person who lives in rural America matters, just like the coal miner matters, even though they're not living in densely populated communities. They matter because they have worth in and of themselves. And we don't have to be numerous to be worthwhile, but I think that we have to change our way of thinking about the world and really look at the fact that there can be different lifestyles lived inside of Detroit, some of which are more rural feeling and some of which are more congested, and those are all acceptable.
We got room for everybody.
There's room.
139 square miles. Fresh off the press. Google expansion in Detroit and Ann Arbor. Spending $17 million in an expansion. Currently in the city of Detroit, Google is housed in an area in the Little Caesars Arena. They're actually going to increase their square footage footprint in the LCA by a significant amount. So Google has been here. I recently found out that LinkedIn has been here. And the question I have for you, Google, the question that I have for you, LinkedIn, and our listeners, please feel free to answer and correct me, is are y'all what percentage of Black folks are y'all hiring? Detroit is a majority Black and brown city. What are the hiring practices? Right, I didn't even know LinkedIn was here.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
You know, there's a lot of documentation. There's a huge gap in hiring of African American tech workers. Not just those who don't have skills, and that's always what people say. But those who are recent college graduates in tech fields have a hard time getting hired by places like Google and LinkedIn. And so I wonder whether or not, they are actually working aggressively to hire those who are graduating from our local universities and also from historically Black colleges and universities where they really have a hard time getting hired now that they're in Detroit. And the other thing is that we are teaching kids all over the city to code. There's coding boot camps, Girls Who Code, Grand Circus, Journey, all of these coding schools. I wonder if those young people who develop strong proficiencies in coding have a pipeline into these new jobs because it's great that they're here as long as the young people who are moving into our community are registering as Detroiters and paying taxes like we are. But it would be really, really great if they also are hiring people who are already here who are talent rich. We have a talent rich community.
We do. And I'm just struggling. I always struggle trying to understand how a company comes to the blackest city in America and struggles to include Black people.
Yeah, well, it's because
how does that happen?
Well, it's because they say that Black people, in one way or another, don't measure up to the skill expectations they have. We've talked about this before, but there are so many proxies for race that you don't know. You can have race without racism without race. You can say, oh, it's not that you're black. It's just that you have this credit score or this standardized test score, or it's that you went to this school that produces these results, this ranked like this, and we like schools that are ranked like that accept primarily kids who have this kind of score profile. And so nobody will ever say it's because we don't like Black people, because that's illegal. It's unconstitutional. And also because there are no more racists.
Yes, we are cured of racism.
Even racist people aren't racist anymore.
That's right.
It's not that I hate Black people. It's just that I don't believe in you people.
Yeah.
So when you have things like that happening, when you have companies like that, I don't really care. And this is where people say, well, you don't know what's in the hearts. And I don't even care what's in people's hearts. That's, God cares.
Show me.
I care about the hearts of the people I love and people I know. But really what I care is about, what do you do? Show me.
Show me.
Don't tell me what's in your heart. I understand that you have very strong positive feelings inside of you, but what does that do to address structural racism?
We're from Missouri, the show me state. Donna, fresh off the press.
And that leads right into Benton Harbor High School.
Yeah.
A school whose population has been decimated by school choice, decimated by press, which constantly beats the drum that it's a failing school district, and therefore kids run out of the school, and every time they lose a kid, they end up, losing revenue. And so now the school is really, really poor. And then they look at these test results and they say, hey, you know what? This school, high school, produces very low test results. And again, tests are proxy for wealth and race. We know that standardized tests are not a reflection of ability to learn. We know that standardized tests aren't even a reflection of effort.
Yes.
Standardized test scores are a reflection of so many things. We have a school that we partner with where 0% of the students graduating from that high school met the college criteria that the state has decided matter, these scores that the state has decided matter. And yet we have kids going to college on full ride scholarships. because we know that those test scores aren't predictive of future success.
That's right.
There's a great deal of research, and yet what the governor, the newly elected governor, has decided to do is to shut the school down because, for one thing, the test scores are too low. And for another thing, this man-made crisis that the student population is too low, and the school district now has too few students to be financially solvent. Now the finances are too low, and so they want to shut it down the way they did Inkster and Buena Vista schools. And the threat is, well, we'll either dissolve the district or we'll charterize the district, because if you can't measure up as a district, we'll shut you down. And there are 800 kids in this high school who will be farmed out to neighboring majority white high schools. And, it's interesting. Those schools and those districts did not become majority white by accident.
By accident?
It's like, oh, coincidentally, these school districts don't have any black kids, but we'll send you there. And what parents are afraid of, and I think it's a legitimate concern, is their kids will get expelled from these schools, or they'll get suspended from these schools. Or overly disciplined.
Yes.
And look at all of the data. The data will show that in schools that are majority white like that, the majority of kids getting suspended or expelled and also placed in remedial classes are the black kids inside of those districts. And so you'll go from a high school that is your high school where you are somebody, even if you're somebody in a school that does not measure up according to the standards set by people who really don't understand what's happening in urban America. You'll go to a district where very few kids are positioned to even graduate, where very few kids are positioned to be to assimilate into the school culture. And it's racist without racism, because I'm certain that if you ask the governor, she will throw some metrics at you. And the treasurer is a black woman, and lieutenant governor is a black man. Certainly, they don't have in their hearts hatred for black people. But the race impact of this decision will be significant.
And Donna, it's not, I'll just say this, it's not a heart issue when we talk about racist policies and practices. I think our system, our governmental system, without the heart, again, being in there, is inherently and systematically racist. And so when we have politicians, black or white, Democratic or Republican, who reinforce the power that already exists within that system, you don't have to have a heart issue with racism or be a stone cold racist. The system is cyclical of structural racism.
It's structural. What really scares me is people take a standardized test score and they say, this kid is not college ready. From a test. And you take that standardized test score and you tell a child they are not college ready, that they have not learned enough in high school. And then you expect them to have the self-confidence necessary to go on to the next level. And I talked about my growing up experiences. And how we were just immersed in self-confidence and imbued with a sense of possibility and capability. We have kids who have grown up in circumstances where none of that is true, where everything they learn about themselves from the time they are small is they're not good enough.
Yep.
And then you add to that this mythology about this test score predicting academic failure at the college level, and wonder why more students are not motivated to not only go to college, because a lot of them do, but to persist when they have trouble in college.
Yep.
Rather than us telling these young people, you have what it takes to move on and be successful. They get a score, and there's a sheet of paper that tells them you don't measure up. And I can't think of anything from a
more psychologically
damaging. Remember when Jesse Jackson used to go, "Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
I am somebody.
I am somebody."
That's
because
right.
I'm sorry. Barack Obama was "Yes, we can," and Jesse Jackson was "I am somebody." Thank you for that. Thank you, Orlando. Let me give you a couple. Right. That's why you always have my back. But I am somebody. The importance of telling somebody that you are smart, you are capable, you have what it takes. We need to be telling those kids that on a regular basis, because the world will tell them in so many ways that they don't, that they are a mistake, that they are not good enough. And then, I mean, I don't want to even talk about it, but, you know, we have this Netflix series, When They See Us.
I haven't watched it, Donna.
Well,
I know the story, and I know the story well. And as a young black man in Detroit, as a young black man in America, I have a visceral, physical reaction to just the story itself and even the documentary. I know that I cannot, at this present time, see it played out dramatically with actors. I need like a village around me to help me watch
it. That's why I said I need a therapist in the room. And then somebody invited me to a showing last Saturday, and there was a therapist in the room. I'm like, I don't know, is she going to sit right next to me and hold my hand? But I mean, I agree with you. I think that it is emotionally devastating because I'm a mother of a black son, and that's what I experienced. I just want to point out that we have our own experiences like that in the city of Detroit, in the city of Benton Harbor, in the city of Flint. We don't need Devontae Sanford. Look at him right here.
Right here in the
black
city.
Prosecutor, black police officers questioning him. 2 weeks after his confession, a serial killer said, I killed this man. A hitman said, I killed this man. And nobody even bothered to investigate the possibility. Instead, the prosecutor said, we just didn't take him seriously. Based on what? You didn't take him seriously based on an investigation, evaluation of the evidence, or you just chose not to believe it. And here you have a policeman who was I believe he was a supervisor, a sergeant, who was overseeing the case, imposed himself in this case. And this is Tolbert, drew the crime scene and said, show me where the bodies were. And he drew the bodies. And this man perjured himself. He was not prosecuted for a crime. And then was he the police chief in Highland Park? He still has a badge. So when you talk about making kids feel like they were less than, if this happened to a white kid anywhere in America, anywhere, this planted evidence, this failure to follow up on a lead like that, he was 14 years old.
It's a child.
14 years old, and I believe partially disabled. So I guess you're either disabled or you're not, but he was disabled, partially blind, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't look at it either, but I also cannot remove the fact that this is not a series about what happened in New York. This is really a condemnation about what is happening to children all over America. And it's a system of oppression, starting with homes in a lot of instances, going on into schools, and then the criminal justice system. And so when you look at the school to prison pipeline and you look what happens to a lot of kids in school who get expelled, who get suspended in these long-term suspensions and give up on themselves, it starts right there. My question is this. Where is Benton Harbor when it comes to student discipline issues? Where is Benton Harbor when it comes to building up a sense of community and student self-esteem? And are they going to be measuring those factors when they farm these kids out to all of these schools that are predominantly white?
More to come. Fresh off the press, Donna, Nazis in the city of Detroit. What? Nazis in the city of Detroit over the weekend. Oh, who let this happen? Particularly this weekend, this past weekend in the city of Detroit. Everybody knows it's Pride weekend. The city of Detroit, the LGBT Regional Chamber held the parade. So many Pride activities going on. And somebody in the bureaucratic municipal structure thought it was okay to give a permit for Nazis to march in the city of Detroit.
It's crazy, right? Not only that, but you know what? If I could walk into other people's communities and have their police officers surround me while I hurled out insults and called them names, I mean, freedom of speech is one thing, but I mean, you know, at least sometimes you have to experience the consequences of that speech. They're in the middle of Detroit hurling out insults, and the people around them are not allowed to respond because they are surrounded by police. I feel as though if you want to come to our
You
community
big
and
and bad,
big
bro.
and bad like that,
You
do
want the
it.
smoke, bro?
Do it, but do not do it hiding behind police officers paid for by the citizens of this city. Do it and be prepared to defend yourself, because there are like 10 of them and everybody else. 10 of them and about 20 police
Shouting
officers making sure they
obscenities
were
and-
safe while they're planting. And someone had the nerve to say that it was a non-violent event. Okay. The Nazi flag, the Nazi symbol is violent.
All day.
Calling people using hate speech is violent. It's
All day.
emotional violence. And having the permission to commit emotional violence on people who are already subjected to too much violence, and that is the LGBTQ community in downtown Detroit, to permit them to do it, to permit them to march there. They should have taken them to Palmer Park. They should have taken them to someplace nobody else was, but to
They
give
should
them
have
that
taken
permission.
them to the Belle Bridge,
Right.
and let them jump off.
Exactly.
Did I say that out loud? I think
Well,
I did.
no.
And so I just
Well,
want to
maybe
know
they can swim.
who was the smart person in the room who oversees, permitting and those kinds of events that require special project police protection, like a pride parade or like a Nazi march. Was there a public input process? What kind of process happens for folks who want permission to demonstrate in our city, especially if they're not from our city?
Well,
What's the process?
This is just another thing that reminds Detroiters that our feelings and our experiences don't seem to really matter to certain people in power in the city of Detroit. You mentioned LCA.
Did I?
Yeah, you did when you talked about
Google. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget looking on the news the first 5 nights or however many nights they decided to let Kid Rock perform and open this stadium and let us all know who the stadium was for. And then they put his restaurant and his name right in front of the stadium.
Right on Woodward. You can see it right on Woodward.
Right on Woodward.
Mm-hmm.
But on that day, there were people who were walking around flying Confederate flags when he was first introduced in there. And that was cool. And that felt like hate. And there's so many people who are not going to go watch the basketball games and not go down there. Not just the $40 parking lots. That's another show. But the actual experience of disrespect that this taxpayer-funded space in our community is now making those things permissible. We can have rules around whether or not you can show any kind of banner. But, when people find themselves on the other side of police who are protecting people who are engaging in hate speech in our community, it creates a dynamic of alienation and disengagement from the governing forces in our community.
Mm. So if nobody else is going to talk about it, we are going to talk about it here on Authentically Detroit. I like to say that at least my personal mission is to lend platform to those of us who are underrepresented or don't have platform to express our power and to express our voice. So while you hear Donna and I speaking, we know and we understand that this is a sentiment of so many of the people that we serve. And you're going to get an opportunity to hear from the amazing residents doing work in the communities that we serve. So we probably have maybe 45 seconds, Donna. We want to do our weekly shout-outs. You want to shout out anybody on the east side or in the city?
I do. I don't know if they're on the east side, but they're in the city. I want to shout out to Ferry Brent from the Coalition for Peace and Brenda Hill from a women's organization that's working on peace. I don't remember the name, for marching and working with the police to apprehend a serial killer in our midst.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to District 4 Manager from the Department of Neighborhoods, Lady Azar. Lady Azar works extremely hard on behalf of residents in District 4. She shows up. You always know where you stand with her. And she's also going to be a panelist at our conversation on June 11th about violence against women in this community. She's done some programs to help intervene against that. And she's the truth, and she's the real deal, and we appreciate all of the work that you do, Lady Azar, and we're happy that you're still here riding with us. And with that said, that wraps up this episode of Authentically Detroit. Listen, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Authentically Detroit Podcast. Become a part of this conversation. If there's something you want us to talk about, drop us a note. If you want to be a guest on the show, email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. We're here every other week, so get used to it. It's going to be like church, y'all. Just get used to the rhythm. Every other week, we'll be dropping a new episode every other Tuesday. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Detroit and the world.